Welcome to episode 7 of Heartfire Sessions. My name is Krista Terry. I'm your host. And in this episode, I'm bringing you part 4, I believe. Yes, part 4 of my talk with Swami Champak. You're going to love it. In this episode, we cover the prophecy of 144,000, which is in the Bible. It's also mirrored in several other places in other spiritual teachings. We also cover advanced pranic healing and some of the things that have been done with advanced pranic healing energy work that might surprise you. We also cover a little bit about counteracting dark magic. I hope you stay tuned through to the end. It's going to be a fantastic episode. As always, please, while you're here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. Every comment and every time somebody hits that like button, it helps more people to see the videos because it boosts it up higher in the algorithms. So please go ahead and do that while you're here. And I hope you enjoy.
Wow, it's like one size fits all,
Mhm.
Yeah, and then put in the safety valves, the twin hearts meditation, so we don't burn out, you know,
Mhm.
and then also left room for us, like how we can keep on, expanding and higher practices and so on and so forth. So it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, what a, so this is why now, it's so what is it? It's 40 years, you know,
Mhm.
we're in 40 something years, since pranic healing started. It's reached millions of people.
Mhm.
It's in
Mhm.
the lives of millions and millions of people, you
Mhm.
know, which is a huge phenomenon,
Yeah.
you know, that it's affecting the lives of so many people. And so, you know, this takes us back to the you know to the prophecy of the 144,000.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is a prophecy that's not really well understood. And some groups think that there's only 144,000 people that are gonna get into heaven,
Yeah.
and so they go out and they're proselytizing, and the way they get, you know, into that queue is by having the most converts, and so this is where great teachings get kinda messed up, Well, what the
Mhm.
144,000 is really all about is kinda like the 100th monkey effect. When
Mm.
there's enough people that are holding a thought anchored in, developed enough that it just suddenly quantum leap goes out and brings everyone up. So with the 100 prophecy of the 144,000, which is what we're really actively working on right now, especially with this pranic healing, practice, reaching the lives of millions of people,
Mhm.
accelerating people up, stimulating, super
Mhm.
stimulating. Tony Robbins doing this super stimulating consciousness where we
Yeah.
go you know, into
I don't
quantum
know if
time leap. But
I don't know if you knew this now, but at Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within events now, he brings in Master Choa to lead meditation on twin hearts. It's the very last thing on the last day. So it's so fantastic.
yeah, that is really a very shrewd move,
Yeah,
energetic wise, and so on and so forth, because it takes care of that whole thing about cerebral overload, burnout. You know,
yeah.
by blessing the planet so that, we're not left, because that is actually a big, so this is why I did I had the message from Master Cho about doing whatever I can to get the practice of transmutation of sexual energy out into the world. So I'll get into that. But so to complete the 144,000, so that what the prophecy is about is that when there's that many or more uh, people evolved high enough that are in body at the same time, that it'll activate the consciousness and we'll have the 100th monkey effect, and it'll lift, do a quantum leap up lifting
Mhm.
of, you know and so that's why it appears to be that we're having this big battle between the forces of light and the forces of dark right now, with them trying to subjugate the minds and lock down and inject and dim, you know, why fluoride is in the water, because fluoride uh, calcifies on the pineal gland, the seat of the soul, and so it inhibits people from having this super consciousness.
Mhm.
All these kind of agendas of the slave sort of thing, and so we're just having to navigate around all that. So yeah, s- so that's why we're actually living in this time of the 144,000 uh, evolving, getting to that point, and
Mhm.
so now we're seeing like the indigo children and so on and so forth, these brilliant, highly evolved, like you were just mentioning about your friend, you know that slept on your couch for a week. It's already karmically entitled, because been doing the work for so many lifetimes, that have, that all we need is, we just need to be upgraded. We don't, a lot of us don't really need a whole infrastructure building. We've got the materials. We just need a little bit of polishing up, a little bit of refreshing, just to and we're off to the races. So yeah, so that's a very lovely thing to have be happening. So with the transmutation of sexual energy, I was I was in dream time, and Master Choa, I was gifted with, having a one-on-one session with him in dream time, where he was talking with me and he was asking me, requesting of me, you know. Uh, Actually, what happens when we go really deep with a teacher like this,
Mhm.
oftentimes they won't ask us, they will tell us, because we have such an intimate connection relationship with them, that they know that we will do what it is that they're asking of us. And so they don't mess around with asking our permission and all that kind of stuff. They cut to the chase,
Mhm.
and they just give us the instructions, and we, and we're actually very appreciative that the teacher is being so direct with us.
Mhm.
That it's like, yes, thank you for not wobbling around and just being straight up with me, you know. So
Mhm.
he said, Champak, do whatever you can to get the teachings of transmutation of sexual energy out to the world. If this was taught in schools to the
Mhm.
children, we would begin to see the end of war on the planet.
Mhm.
So I woke up from that, and so I keep a dream journal, a book by my bed, and so I just flip it open, and oftentimes what I'll do is I'll have like a pen attached to it on a string, and I'll just scribble while I'm still kind of half asleep, just scribble some notes down, and then go back to sleep, and then later on in the day expand on, oh yeah, those are the crib notes, okay, now expand on that,
Mhm.
pad that out. So with that practice of transmutation of sexual energy, basically I teach it to children, and I change the wording, you know, on how to balance your energy, I call it, with them, because they don't, the whole sex word is such a supercharged thing that it's like, so they don't need to, So basically, what we do, and I've had some chats with some people about it, and they've asked me to kind of refine it a little bit. So we do some general sweeping first. That's the best thing. You so, anyways, what we do is we connect up to our higher self,
Mhm.
and we reach out and, on purpose, imagine like a balloon of energy in the higher self. And what we want to do is we want to grasp that and then bring that down to each chakra, you know, and like put that consciousness there, and just, you know, go down the body, just bringing that higher self all the way down, right down to the sex chakra. uh, and so there's I did it's a really nice YouTube about it, and you can look it up, Swami Champak, um, Wisdom Master Series, YouTube. Some friends of mine did a pirate sort of thing and made 10 of these YouTubes, and I found out about it a year later that somebody says, "Hey, Champak, I've seen you on YouTube." I said, "What? What's YouTube?" "Oh yeah, don't you know?" "Huh? What?" "Oh, okay." So there's a whole lot of stuff there, friendly wizard, all that kind of stuff. They're potheads, But anyways, yeah. but 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 it was all taking place in a hot tub, which is a lovely place to have grand thoughts, because
Mhm.
body's all warm and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So anyways, so then so now we're down at the sex chakra with our higher consciousness, you know. And so then what we do is we grasp the roaring energy because this is our center of creativity. And so we
Mhm.
grasp that excess energy and now we move it up and we feed all the chakras with this energy, all the way up, back up, and then up to the higher self. And then we repeat that, like do that 7 times, you know,
Mhm.
you know? And then once that's all done, and we just do a little bit of body movement to just kind of anchor it in, and there we are. Our chakras are balanced,
Mhm.
and it's just that easy. And so person gets good at it, just do it like that. It's like, oh yeah, balance it. You know, we don't have to. A lot of the stuff we don't have to make it a really long, drawn out. Sort. We can do short form, like Twin Hearts meditation. We could do that in really short form by just like you know, there's the ambulance going by. Boom, do the blessings on it. That's Twin Hearts meditation. That's
Mhm.
extending it out, and it's done. It's received, and so on and so forth. You know, but it's best to not always do everything in short form. You know do a long form, but if we're in time constraints, so it's the same thing with shielding. It's like do the whole practice or just like snap fingers and shields are up. Boom. You know? We can
Mhm.
we can do all these things with all this talent and stuff like that. Yeah, so that transmutation of sexual energy. So what that does is uh because we had a class with Master Choa and he loved investigating stuff and so exploring things and so he said how about we examine some historical figures what
Mhm.
their chakras were like because with pranic healing we can kind of go into that where you know somebody was they're no longer alive but there's an energy signature that's still there. And so we can just imagine and we can just go and we can just, imagine what their chakras were like. You know,
Mhm.
beauty of this, So who do you guys want to, look at in history? So a number of people, what about this person? What about this person? And then somebody said, well, what about Hitler? Oh, now there's somebody that most everybody's familiar with in some level. So yeah, okay, let's scan Hitler. Let's scan Hitler's chakras, you know? So we're doing all this kind of stuff. And so the consensus of the class was his chakras, his heart chakra was so tiny.
Mhm. Mhm.
His crown chakra was so tiny.
Mhm.
His throat chakra was so huge.
Mhm.
His solar plexus was so huge, and et cetera. There was some minor, differences with the rest of the chakra packages, but those are the four basic drivers of this whole thing, ash in the forehead and all that kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. So we looked at that and we went, wow, this was the perfect combination to be a monster.
Mhm.
No
Mhm.
heart, you know, no compassion, you know, able to, the guy could sleep at night, no worries, you know, because it wasn't bothering him. Yeah, and Yeah. So this is why it's, so important that, that we be balanced.
Mhm.
So this is what meant in that Dreamtime session, that if this was taught to children, we'd begin to see the end of war.
Mhm.
Because if a person is fully balanced in all their chakras, they just will not do evil things,
Mhm.
you know, because they know better, they're so they're out of balance. I mean, we can see that right away. It's in our lexicon. Yeah, that person's off balance. Yeah, but what does that mean? It's like, oh yeah, well, who, you know. So what we need to do is we need to help some chakras grow, and you know, and actually look at, now this is where it gets into the real, whether we're karmically entitled or not to inhibit somebody's chakras.
Mhm.
Um, that's a real delicate one, that it's best left alone unless we're
Yeah.
doing like a major intervention. You know.
You can always send blessings, but when it comes to working directly with someone's chakras, then it's a little bit like, do you have permission?
Yeah, so this is
Yeah.
why, we call in the guides, helpers,
Yeah.
protectors, and so on and so forth, to, because they can override us if
Yeah.
we're making an error, you know, and, so we're being the tool to, you know,
Mhm.
but, yeah, it's very interesting because First World Convention in Victoria, I think it was, no, it was 1990. I keep on getting this all mixed up. It was 1990 that I met Master Choa, not 2000. I think I might have said that earlier, at 2000, at the first convention in Victoria, he
Mhm.
had a number of guest speakers come up, and uh, one of them was a surgeon from Colombia,
Mm.
South America, and so. Uh, a lot of really interesting people that he had on the stage here with him, and so he asked this person to explain what they were doing in this, psychic surgery. You know? And so, because it's a poor country and um, medicine is they don't have the universal medicine system. People got to pay,
Mhm.
user pay sort of thing, and so it gets down to affordability. What can they afford?
Mhm.
And there's only so much charity that the hospitals can do, and so on and so forth. So they were trying to look at how to bring the expenses down. So these pranic healers, that were also surgeons and doctors in this hospital, and they just love it. So what they were working on was how to do pranic healing anesthesia. So
Mhm.
in effect, what they uh, uh, were able to induce was a kind of a lower the body temperature, kind of bring the brain activity down into a slower state, and then they could operate on the person, and and then when they finished up, then they could pull the person back from the anesthesia much faster. Because
Mhm.
that's a big complication in anesthesia, is because it's a near death sort of thing. It's taking somebody right to the threshold where they're almost dead,
Mhm.
and then just keeping them hovering just this side of death. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's why some people just die, because they wanted to go, and so they just um, opted out at that moment to just, and so they have to fight to bring them back, sort of thing.
Mhm.
So anyway, so they were working on this and developing this, and very, very successful with this. And then they got a call via the network of that there was this kidnapping that was happening live, where it was a preschool of children that were being held hostage by these gunmen for ransom, and all sorts of complications about that. And affordability to pay and all that kind of stuff, and what happens if you don't, yada yada yada. So somebody in that whole police end um, connected and called these guys and asked them, can you people do something? So they thought, wow, okay, what can we do? So they really quickly got together and said, look, we know that pranic healing anesthesia works.
Mm.
How about we do distant pranic healing anesthesia? So they're thinking about, okay, well, how could we do that? And so what they came up with was hypothermia, inducing hypothermia to the brain. You know?
Mm.
And then they looked at the ethics of this. Well, okay, these people were exempt from uh, the ramifications of ethical because they had crossed the line of uh, taking children as hostages.
Yeah.
So, so it was kind of like they're the bad guys. There's no question about it. And so, overwhelming force is authorized. You know,
Mhm.
just so long as it's not done to harm them, because this is
Mhm.
preventative interventions, so they coordinated everything with the police and all that kind of stuff. And they said, okay, in 20 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to make these guys go to sleep. So we want you guys to get your binoculars out and everything like that, get everybody ready, and then when we give you the green light, go in and apprehend them.
Mhm.
Okay, so this whole thing was all coordinated and stuff like that. And so then these pranic healing surgeons, what they went in and they brought the brain temperature down a few degrees, just
Mhm.
slowly, until these people basically passed out. But they weren't at the threshold of like stopping their heart. They
Mhm.
were just like deep sleep uh, from hypothermia. Yeah. And then so then they had the different teams come in, to secure and get the children out right away, which is the priority. And then the other teams, same time going in, putting handcuffs on all these people, and
Mhm.
then disarming them, and then coordinating and calling back. Okay, the area is secured, all that kind of. Okay, we'll begin to wake them up now. And so then they, they the healers distantly started to warm the brains back up again. And these guys would go, what happened? Like, wow, you know. But Master Choa was just so excited. Tell the story, get it out there. But he was reluctant to put that into print
Mm.
because it has the potential to be abused.
So
So that's like a need to know, and it's also, again, why the whole graduating sort of system is once we get up into the higher teachings, it's like we're privy to all that kind of stuff because it's known that we're not going to abuse it, because we've
Yeah.
already arrived at that place of, you know, we would never do that trespass.
Yeah.
So that's why the teaching's got to be protected, in certain ways. So
Mhm.
this is available to the public and this is not in our
Mhm.
teachings, so on and so forth. You know, and yeah, and so also too, why, like in some of the other practices that are out there, where they're openly talking about, in effect, creating entities. You know? Like I just got some YouTube. I haven't. I don't even want to open it. Where it's this world-renowned teacher talking about how you can just kind of form these entities, put some chakras energies together, and then have these things do your bidding. You know. Well, let's get into demon working with demons. Uh, and Walt Disney made this fantastic movie, Fantasia, where Mickey Mouse there, he gets the wizard's spell book, and then, you know, the wizard has them that, okay, you got to, do this housework, and then he goes off on a trip, and Mickey goes, hey, I'll just get the broom to do it, and so he casts a spell on the broom carry the water, so the broom is carrying the water, but he doesn't know how to turn this thing off. And so then the whole house and everything gets all flooded and all that kind of stuff. And then it's a big disaster because he invoked this thing to happen, but he didn't have the wherewithal to control it and shut it down and monitor it, and that is the nature with dabbling with demons,
Mm.
is that once people, I don't want to say once people, start that stuff, it can actually very easily get out of their control, and
Yeah.
it's to be like a runaway train. And then they start to get, and so people that dabble, that do that, they have karmic responsibility of what they've done, and then whoever taught them how to do this stuff, they also have the karmic, you know, baggage from having taught this stuff.
I found out through a family member that there are some, what would I call them? Ceremonial type stuff and
Uh,
rituals that are out there on the internet that are dabbling in some dark stuff that
yeah. Oh,
are
yeah.
marketed to teenagers as
Oh,
like fun games to play in the dark. And like I've read the instructions on some of these and I was like, holy crap, this is not a fun game to play in the dark. This is an actual ritual. And I
yeah.
was like, that's just like, just don't go there. No.
Okay, yeah. Well, Ouija board is classic.
Whoever posted those on the internet,
Uh,
I don't want your karma.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I worked at counteracting that stuff for
Yeah.
quite a number of years. I was very, very, very active because it was a huge, big outgoing of practice of satanic worship stuff going on in Vancouver. You know?
Mm.
And it was, um, I had been gifted with working for the Vancouver School Board as a carpenter.
Mhm.
And so I got to go back to the old schools that I'd been abused in when I was a kid because
Mhm.
it was just how things were. And I have like a hearing impairment. Well, I only have 40% hearing in one ear.
Mhm.
So I can hear pretty much everything if things are quiet. But if there's a whole lot of noise going on, it's like it's all like a dog's breakfast, and I can't. It's difficult for me to discern what's going on. You know.
Mhm.
So as a result of that, I was kind of held back in the school system and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. Anyways, so at the same time too, I was uh, librarian in 3 private libraries in Vancouver.
Mhm.
And so I had access to all this hidden knowledge, ancient stuff, and then big bookstore in Vancouver, uh, best in Vancouver of the esoteric. Uh, they would call me occasionally because they had a buyback policy of every book that they sold. They put a little stamp in one of the front pages, and so if they sold it, that they would buy it back if somebody wanted to, at a used book price, sort of thing. Anyway, so they wound up uh, getting estate libraries because a lot of these libraries had a lot of their books, and so then the person would just, could you just take all the books, please? Okay, yeah. And they'd wind up with having a whole bunch of books that they don't want to sell in their store. It's like,
Mhm.
uh. So they would call me and just ask me to just come and just please take these books away, you know.
Mhm.
And so it's a lot of black magic stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I was studying that stuff because I needed to know how it works so that I could know how to diffuse it, you know.
Mhm.
Like a
Mhm.
bomb expert needs to know how, or a surgeon needs to understand disease so they know how to treat it,
Yeah.
similar sort of thing. So I was going around town debunking all this kind of stuff and shutting things down and quite active with it. And so one of the places that they were targeting was schools, elementary schools,
Mhm.
doing satanic ritual in the school ground, late at night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning under certain moon phases and stuff like that. And they would, and so I would go to the school to do some some maintenance work, and I would notice the janitor was out there cleaning up the red candle wax that was and all these kind of and scrubbing out the chalk pentacles and everything with somebody been messing around here last night, you know, and they were really really upset, because it was such a trespass on a sanctuary. This is
Mhm.
children play, so what I did is I just kind of like, now I know what where the targets are, and and so I would one-on-one talk mainly with the janitors, you know, about what is going on, what they're trying to accomplish, and you know, and then happened to luck out, and there was a Vancouver police officer that was there in the uh, janitor's uh, lunchroom sort of thing, uh, and the police they're on call during the day, and so they're waiting for the call to go out and intervene somewhere. And so oftentimes they've got a lot of free time on their hands where they're just waiting somewhere at a location where they can be quick to respond to it. So they're oftentimes they're spread out all over the city. They're not just down at the station downtown where
Mhm.
get an emergency call and they got to fight all the way through traffic to get there. Well, they got these guys posted all over the place. And so one of the convenient places that they do is they sit around in schools,
Mhm.
they hang out in the custodians lunchroom, and just kind of have their radio there, and then they're just playing cards, whatever like that, because they're only a couple of minutes away from where the hotspot's going to be.
Mhm.
Comes with the territory. So anyways, this guy happened to be there. So I started talking to him about this whole thing, you know, you
Mhm.
know, very, like I segued into it about, yeah, it's terrible out there. Yeah, yeah, got agreement with him. Yeah, it's awful. So yeah, it shouldn't be. Yeah, right, right. Well, okay, okay. Well, do you guys want to know, what these guys are trying to do? Yeah, I'd really like to know what they're trying to do. Okay, well, this is so I give them a basic education on how this kind of dark ritual stuff works, so that and I said, okay, now these are the times when you can find these guys, because oftentimes they go by some kind of lunar calendar where they pick,
Mhm.
like a full moon or a new moon or whatever like that. And
Mhm.
so this is where you know, so you can look it up through the old farmer's almanac and what the moon phases are and stuff like that, in this area. So the likelihood of these guys being here next Thursday at 2:30 in the morning is prime. So if you guys just happen to be here at that time, you would probably find them. And then the best allies I found was the
Mhm.
local fire department, where I go
Mhm.
over and talk to those guys, because they're in the station 24 hours a day. They
Mhm.
have a day shift and night shift, and so they got a lot of free time at night when they're just sitting there, and they're really cheesed off about this kind of stuff. It's like, whoa,
Mhm.
they don't like it at all. And so these are the go-to guys. I go over there and okay, so next Thursday at 2:30 and 2:35 in the morning, that's when these guys are probably going to be. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate that. Boom. And then I'm out of the picture. I'm now I extricated myself out so that there's no uh trail of evidence linking me in, for
Mhm.
any kind of official thing, records and so on and so forth. Leave it up to them, so they would
Mhm.
just come in and just like on force, just kind of come in and surround them, you know, and so then the word got out of how to deal with this, and then they just took it on themselves, and I no longer needed to educate these guys because it's like now they know I've handed it off.
Mhm.
Great. And so while I was there in the schools, I also did some proactive ritual.
Mhm.
Yeah. Where, because there was this one high school that I was in that, I was working on the ceiling in the grand staircase, and so, uh, the stairs go up, and then there's a landing, and then they turn, and then they go up. And so these are great big, because dealing with hundreds of students, thousands or whatever, tromping up and down these stairs. So it's a big thing. So
Mhm.
really high vaulted ceilings. But we had to do some work on the ceiling up there, so I had to put a scaffolding all the way up, right up to the ceiling.
Mhm.
So once all that was in position, and then we're waiting for the other trades to come in, and I had some spare time, I just went up there and non-physically drew sacred circle, pentacles, Om signal, signet, and so on and so forth like that, and energetically drew this stuff on that ceiling,
Mhm.
and then invocated to angel beings and guides, helpers, that this be like a portal, like a beacon of light to shine down, perfect place. Because there's these kids walking up and down. They're going to walk through the shower,
Mhm.
several times a day. Get this this buzz, the stimulation sort of thing, and then tailor it so that it only enters, with their permission.
Mhm.